You're listening to Just a Dude podcast with your host, Nathan. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's roll. Welcome back to another episode of Just a Dude podcast, the show where we talk to interesting people about interesting things. I'm your host, Nathan, and today we have a very special guest who's a talented author and the mind behind thrilling novels, Mr. Bradley Elder. For those of you who don't know Brad, he's the author of Recoil of Justice, a fast-paced thriller that's got everyone on the edge of their seats. Brad, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me, Nathan. I sure can. My name is Brad Elder, an attorney and CEO in Texas. I'm also a licensed attorney, like I just said, a licensed attorney in Texas. I'd probably say 2 years ago, I got the idea that I may want to try my hand at writing a book. I love reading thrillers and always have for the last 15, 20 years or so. And as I was reading Jack Carr's Red Sky Morning, something occurred to me that, I may be able to do this, and I'm willing to find out if I'm good at it or not very good at it. So
Right.
When I finished the book, I opened up my computer and just started writing. And again, not quite 2 years later, we should be publishing, as of the recording, we should be publishing in about 6 days. So
Nice.
Really excited
Excellent.
about that.
So we are like getting the fresh first takes from you, Brad, before the book even hits the shelves, huh?
That's right. Yeah,
That's
it
awesome.
has not hit yet. It's been a long process. I finished writing back in January. It is now June, and part of this process has been the learning process for me of the publishing world. And but I'm happy to say that we're just about at the finish line, and I can't wait for the feedback from the readers.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just to put it out there, and I know we're going to talk about it more, but I believe your book is called Recoil of Justice, right?
It is, yes.
And what is the actual release date of that, Brad?
Looking at June 9th as a release date.
Perfect. So
Yes.
right around the corner. That's awesome.
6 days from now, I'm gearing up for it.
Yeah, and I know we'll probably release in October, but I think, Brad, I could definitely I'll do a post for you on the 9th to let you know that we recorded and that your books come out, so we can hopefully get some folks pushing them that way. But yeah, excellent.
Love that.
So how did you? I got to ask this because I like to know origin stories. And, one of my things here, Brad, is that we take the stories of what I call normal, everyday folks, those of us that have probably worked from the bottom up and done things, but we do extraordinary things like writing a book. Of course, being a CEO and an attorney is an extraordinary thing in its own, but writing a book is another thing. But how did you go from a CEO / attorney to an author? Like, what was that jump like?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not to make it too long of a story, but I was involved in a lawsuit it's a 3-year-long lawsuit. I was not the attorney. Unfortunately, I was the defendant in the lawsuit.
Yeah.
It was, again, it was 3 years long. It was a mountain of legal fees and a huge distraction. And I felt like I was completely out of control of the entire process. And about 3 days before we were finally going to trial, which was would have been 2.5 years after filing, some tragedy struck the judge's family. Luckily, that all came out to be okay, but the trial had to be postponed for another 6 months. And I was just devastated.
Yeah, at that point, yeah, I'm sure you're probably pulling your hair out. Look like me, right?
Absolutely. It was a very frustrating process. I felt like I was completely out of control, like I said. And so I never consider myself a creative person, but something struck me that I need to do something that I'm the only one in control of. The outcome doesn't matter. I just want to do something that I'm in control of. So I went to the store and bought some canvas and some paint, and I'm not a very good artist. I just started painting. And the first few were absolutely terrible. I'm not gonna lie to you. They're in a dumpster somewhere, I'm sure, but about 4 or 5 paintings in, I don't even remember what I was painting now, but I made a brush stroke that was kind of a mistake. And I'm like, wow, that looks just like a wave. And so I kind of built from that. So I learned from a lot of mistakes to the point that, I could do one or two that, I can tell when my wife likes them well enough. She said, well, you can hang those in your office. They're not living room worthy. They may be office worthy, but
That's still better than you can hang that in the trash can, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So that kind of got this creative spark in me. And, fast forward a few years till, the story I was telling earlier about reading Jack Carr's book. And I just decided I wanted to do that too. And I started writing. And, I wasn't sure if it was any good. I thought it sounded okay, but I wasn't sure, so I forwarded it to a friend who's a writing professor at a university. And he was very supportive and suggested um, that I really needed to see this through. And so at that point, and it took me a few months to get up the nerve to send it to him.
Yeah,
And I told
I'm
him, like,
sure. Yeah, your first attempt, right, at doing something, and you got a
it's
buddy who's like, that's what he does, right?
that's
Looks
what
at
he
books
does, and
and
he writes books himself. And so, he knows what he's talking about. And it was a feeling of vulnerability there that I was very hesitant just to hit the send button. And once I did, then I got serious about it after he gave me the good feedback. And it took me probably 8 or 9 months after that, and to the finished product. And it was changed a few times. Hired an editor, and when
yeah,
they get a hold of it, he made it a much better book, but it definitely changed a lot, deleted a lot, had to add some more. So, that's kind of the process. I hit a point in my career that I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy, um, the employee relationships that I have, and I enjoy the leadership role that I have, and I do enjoy that very much. But I was needing something else, something I could really dig my teeth into, and luckily I found it with this, and I hope this journey continues.
yeah, and that's really amazing thing, and it's something that I could kind of relate to too, Brad. Is what I do during the day, I love doing it. I work in tech, so I work with a bunch of really fascinating and intelligent people, and the things that we all build together is just amazing. But I was kind of like you, missing that creative flow, or trying to be. I
Right.
don't know what it was. Obviously, then I didn't know it was a creative, but I was like, maybe I'll start a podcast and just see where it goes, And here I am, like 60 episodes later, and
Very nice.
tens of thousands of downloads. So I'm like, well, maybe it's working. I guess somebody out there likes it,
Sounds like it is.
Yeah.
I love the
But
name too.
yeah, and why
Just a
you,
dude. I wanted to apologize when I came off from my casual attire, but
no, no.
I've got baseball practice. We started All-Star baseball, so I've got that practice in about an hour and a half. So I
Nice.
guess I'm just a dude like
No, see, and that's what I
most of your
love. I
listeners.
want to see you at your natural, right? That's how I like people to come on here so that we can share that story and say, look, this is just a dude like the rest of us. And
Just a
if he
dude.
can do it, we can do it, right?
That's right.
And,
And
and
I hope it's not just from writing. I hope if they
yeah,
find anything that they're wanting to do, whether it be getting in shape, or whether it be saving more money, or getting healthier, or becoming a better
absolutely.
husband or father, whatever, just, man, you can,
Yes,
but if you
and we
just
tell
start.
ourselves, right? We tell ourselves, like even you said, sending that first email out with your, hitting the send button on your book. It's like it takes once you get over that hump. It's, I don't want to say it's smooth sailing, but it gets a
Right.
lot easier after that point.
It absolutely does. But it sounds silly, sounds simple, but you have to start. You have to
Yeah,
start somewhere, and you
you
just
have
just
to.
take that first step.
Yep. So, Brad, what sparked I mean, obviously, I know you went into painting and writing, but how did you get into writing thrillers? How did it become that? Was that something that, like, right when you started writing, you're like, this is what I want to do?
Yeah, it's mostly what I read. I don't think I'm intellectual enough to read some of the literary fiction, or it just doesn't hold my interest really. And the thrillers always did. I don't fancy myself a badass, but I sure would like to be one. So I always kind of pictured myself in these roles, of the Scott Harbaths, or the James Reese roles. And it always kind of came to me like, what would I do in this situation? I'm just a normal guy. These guys are trained. They're, obviously they're fictional characters, but they're trained. They're, whether it be ex-military or Secret Service or CIA, what have you. What would a normal person do in that situation? That's kind of how Ryan Wolf was born. He was a normal guy, a lawyer in Houston, who gets into a situation that gets completely out of control, and he has to figure out how far he's willing to go to kind of save those who need saved, or make up for what he perceives as he needs retribution, and how far is he willing to go to find that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that that makes a great transition because I wanted to ask you as well, like what inspired you for this specific story, and can you tell us a little bit more about the plot and the character Ryan Wolf?
Sure. I don't want to go through too many spoiler
Yeah,
alerts, but
I
I'll
want to
hit
make
the
sure
high
people buy the
spots.
book, right?
Cliff Notes version.
Yes.
Ryan is a lawyer in Houston, where my title company is. So I kind of knew the lay of the land and some of the things that I explained in there, and different roads and areas of Houston that I'm familiar with and have lived in. But he is one of his oldest clients is a victim of a theft of software, the code, the software that they had written, very secure online data storage and data sharing software, uses artificial intelligence and really quantum computing, but I changed it up because I'm not smart enough to know all the ins and
To
outs.
get all
Now,
the details, yeah.
what quantum computing is, so I kind of changed the name of it a little bit. But their code is stolen, and they suspect it's from their largest competitor. And Brian sets out in the beginning to prove that they, in fact, did steal the code and are now using it for their own use, and also cost his clients billions of dollars in contracts. Well,
Yeah.
so he attempts to see this to fruition, and then at some point the real sinister plot behind the stolen code is revealed, and that takes really the next couple of parts of the book and explores who's behind the sinister plot, the real sinister things that they're doing, having to do with human trafficking, drug trafficking, organ
Wow.
trafficking. And it puts Ryan completely out of his comfort zone, but again, he has to grow past it and find out just how far he's willing to go.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's amazing, just the sound of that. Now, I'm intrigued because, I work in AI, so obviously, I was, and I don't think this came up, Brad, when we talked earlier, but, I was a police officer for 13 years prior to
Wow.
going into technology. So it's like
Okay.
you're hitting both of my, yes, I want to read this book, the
Remember, it's a
phases
work of
for that.
fiction. Just remember that's a
Yes.
work of fiction.
Yeah, exact. But I love books like that, especially ones that you can relate to. And I was going
Sure.
to ask, obviously, I hear some similarities to, your life, being a lawyer in Texas. And did you draw some similarities and some things from your life for the book?
I did. I have some background in litigation. The litigation process and the deposition process and the trial process I was pretty familiar with. So that was kind of easy, for me
Sure.
to write. Now, how do you explain that to the non-lawyer? I didn't want to get too in the details because the rules of evidence and the rules of
Oh, yeah.
procedure are very, very boring
I mean,
and
yeah, and
very, very
you
complicated.
could write 3 prequels, right? Just on
That's right.
on
Just
all of
on
that.
that. But I didn't want to bore them because I don't
Right.
consider this a legal thriller. I call it a legal light thriller. It
Yes.
hits some high spots. It's not a John Grisham legal thriller. It kind of takes a little morphs into a legal thriller, into an action thriller as well. But I took a lot of that from my life. I even touched a little bit on the case that I was involved in that kind of spurred on my desire to write. But and certain things from my own life I put into Ryan's life. They always say, write what you know.
Yeah.
So and some of the lessons that I learned from that, his relationship with his father, his relationship with his family, and some of the events that shaped his life, shaped my life, also shaped Ryan's life. Now, anybody, I got a little worried that people who know me would think, oh, you think you're as cool as Ryan Wolf.
Right.
Even one of my friends who read a rough draft in the beginning, he texted me and said, "Oh, 6'1", 180 pounds, huh?" I'm like, "No, Ryan, it's not me. He's who I want to be. Smarter, younger, and better looking.
Yeah, the better version, right?
Yeah,
The
the better
improved
version
version.
of me." Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
it was fun to do that, and only the people who truly know me will know I did draw some of that from it. But I found it fun to put those kind of things in the book. I think it helps it out. I can't wait to hear the reader's feedback on it.
Yeah,
But
and I agree with that, Brad, because I was going to say, as we're talking here, I find when you can find things that are relatable to the author themselves, it seems to make the book that much better, because if you write a little bit of yourself in there, it's what you know best, right? Is
that's right.
yourself.
That's
So,
right.
and that usually will show through in the book. And so that's why I had to ask that. I thought
Yeah.
for sure I noticed some similarities, but yeah.
One other thing I did, kind of a fun little thing, is some authors, what they will do, and I think this is an excellent idea. If they will take, if somebody gives money to a charity of of the author's choice, they will name a character in the book after them, which I think is a
I
fantastic
love
way to
that.
raise money.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of pull. So I just, wanted to show a little loyalty to my friends. I use some of my friends' names in the book as characters. Some of them To my knowledge, none of them are Mexican cartel leaders. None of my friends are, but one of my other baseball coaches, we kind of fall off out of baseball season and don't talk much for 3 or 4 months or whatever. And his name will pop up when he texts me, and that's one of the central bad guys. And so it kind of like, hey, I hope it's not the fictional Justin Alcord. I
Yeah,
hope it's the real one.
yeah, exactly. That's awesome though. I like that. And you know what? I've never heard that people will, if you give to charity, they'll put your name in the book
Great
as a
idea.
character. I love that idea
Yeah,
because
great idea.
I mean everybody wins. Right now you
That's
get your
exactly
name in a
right. Yeah.
book and
Yep.
a charity gets some well needed funds or whatever the donation may be, so
That's right.
that's awesome. Now for you, and obviously this is your first book, right? Your first novel. So
Yes.
what for you, what was your writing process like? Like, for example, did you think everything out or do you like take let the characters just kind of take control and go?
Yeah, I did the latter.
Did you?
I found that I'm more creative when I'm being creative. So I don't think I'm capable of sitting down and writing a complete outline of a book. I've tried it since then, and it's man. After first couple of chapters, I'm going. I'm hitting a wall here. I didn't even know the ending of Recoil of Justice until I wrote it. I didn't know how it was going to end until I'm actually just writing it. So, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the way my brain is wired, but I felt like I kind of had to divorce myself from the characters and see where they would take it, not necessarily where I would take it.
Yeah,
And
like
I know
put
that
yourself
sounds a
into their
little,
shoes. Yeah.
yeah, that sounds a little, I don't know, hokey or something,
No, I don't think so. I think
but
it makes perfect sense, right? Because if you're writing and you're trying to really get it, I mean, I think of actors all the time when I speak with authors like yourself, like method acting, right? They really put
yes,
themselves in the role. And I mean, essentially that's what you're doing here with your characters. And I
that's
love
right.
that.
And going back and forth, and it was actually very fun to write the bad guys because I don't think of doing these things. I've never ran a human trafficking ring. Pray to God, I
Right.
never find myself anywhere remotely involved with one. But it was a real exercise of your creativity to think, what would this completely depraved individual do or say now? And I did enjoy that part of it a lot. But the characters kind of in the storyline developed itself a lot, and some of it was just from things I would see, when I would have quote unquote writer's block and never suffered with it too badly. But I got the tip from a master class with David Baldacci and what he had, and it made me feel better because he's not an outliner either. He'll have a very, very broad general idea and just kind of starts writing from there. I'm just like, okay, I'm not crazy and unprepared here. That a lot of people do that. So
Yeah.
he would say sometimes if I'm struggling, I'll look out the window and just start writing a short story about what two kids, playing. Where did their stories meet? And that'll get the creative juices going again, or I'll, go exercise or mow the lawn or take a shower, something just to stop the process.
Yeah,
But
just break up the monotony of just constantly thinking, get your
that's
mind
right.
off it for a minute.
That's right. And, I've found that I go from real lulls where I may write a few words a week because I just can't get into it to, oh, something sparks. And then I don't get up from my computer for 3 or 4 days. So, I'm not a guy who can set the timer. Like there's a lot of the writing softwares. They'll go, what's your daily goal on Word? And it'll keep counting your daily goal. Mine's like a heartbeat, up and
Yeah,
down, up and
exactly.
down.
Yeah, and I thought too because you're still maintaining your day job, right, Brad? So
That's
I
right.
mean, you're
Yeah. I
still
got to pay bills.
practicing law and you got to pay bills and you're writing as well. So how was that for you as far as did you ever find that you were trying to balance the two or did you always find a nice separation?
Well, I'm pretty lucky in my day job. I have a very, very strong team that runs my company for me. I don't have a traditional legal practice. I do the legal work as it involves my company document preparation and loan package preparation and things of that nature.
Okay.
So I'm very lucky in that aspect that I don't have to get up and start answering emails and phone calls at 8 o'clock
You
in the
don't have to
morning
be in the weeds
and
right at 8
grind.
a.m.
I
and
don't. That's right. That's right. Now, what I did do is, like I said, I live in Lubbock, Texas, which is up in the Panhandle, and my company is in Houston. I make sure that when I do go visit, and I'm usually down there about once a month for a few days, it is daylight to dark. I'm doing something, so I get a lot of work in those 3 or 4 days that I'm down there, and then I can come back and focus on some other things. But I have found that both make me better at the other. I can kind of focus on my company for a few days. And when I come back, there's obviously a little hangover there where you kind of have to, take care of some issues or follow up on some things. So, about a week there, and then I'm ready to get back to it.
Yeah, I
But when
call
that
that like
3 weeks or
the
so,
slow work separation, right?
that's
Where it
right.
kind of like
That's right.
trickles out. There's a couple of things you got to follow up on, and yeah,
Yep.
and then you can get back to your writing. Yeah, I
And
love that
then,
though.
when I'm kind of hitting a lull in writing, it's time to go back and refocus. So those back and forths I thought felt like really helped me a lot. And
Yeah,
I've got a great home life too. My wife is very supportive. And we're, like I said earlier, we're in the midst of baseball season right now. So I get to in the evenings, like, okay, got to go to practice, got to go to, or get to go to practice, get to go to games. And so, picking up my son in the afternoon. I mean, all those are blessings. But it breaks. I'm not a grinder. I can't sit there behind a desk for 40 years and do the same thing. So it breaks up my days nicely to where I can focus in in brackets, I guess you
yeah,
could
and
say.
it's nice because you have then a nice work. I don't want to call hobby, but writing and work, life balance.
At this point, it's a hobby.
Yeah, and that's the way I look at this. It's a hobby. I'm not making money off of this. Obviously, I
Sure.
still work a day job too, but I
Sure.
love talking to interesting people. And it is nice when you can have that, you can separate those things and not be bogged down by everything,
Yeah.
and
Then it becomes a job.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and it's tough. I could see because I think back to some of the like, especially think of when I was a cop. There's no way I could have done this during that time
Right.
because I go in for an 8-hour shift, and most times 12 hours later I come home.
Sure.
So it's
Exhausted.
like, yeah, exactly.
And you
By the
don't want
time
to
you're
talk to
done,
anyone, probably.
exactly. And at least with this, I could do my day job and it's nice. And, I work with all my folks during the day. And then in the evening, I go into podcast mode and I only do that a couple of days a week. And then the rest of the time I spend with my wife. So, yeah, it's very important too, though. I just wanted to
Yeah.
get that out there because, as well as I do, it's important to make sure you have that good work life balance and,
100%. Yeah.
make sure
100%.
everybody's doing everything. But yeah, Brad, with this book, I did want to kind of get into, kind of your inspirations. And I know you've been influenced by some legendary authors, but who are your
Yeah.
biggest writing inspirations and how do you think they've helped shape your work?
The ones I follow the most and read the most, like if they put out a book, I'm buying it. I'm pre-order, it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, it's
Jack
at your
Carr,
front
like
door when it's
if
or in your
when it
Kindle when it's first
when
day
it's
out,
ready
right?
to go. Yeah, I'm more of a book guy. I don't have a Kindle. I can't read on a device very well. I like the paper.
I'm the
You
same.
know,
I have a Kindle, but I prefer paper books. Yeah, I like having
I
that paper in my hand.
and the audiobooks are nice when you're on the road.
Yeah.
Those are very nice. It really makes up miles click off. But Brad Thor, Jack Carr, Harlan Coben, I love David Baldacci. I love, and going a little further back, Larry McMurtry. He's one of the greatest authors of all time. His first book I ever read that wasn't a school assignment was
Yeah.
Lonesome Dove. All 950 pages of it, and I couldn't put it down. It was sad when it was over. So those are the guys that really have, because growing up thinking of reading, especially fiction, you're probably like me in school, you read the classics. And
Yep.
I mean, I'm sorry, and I'm sure that these people are phenomenal. Some of them are just snooze fests.
Yes, I mean, and especially like I look back and I mean, Shakespeare is probably one of the greatest writers of all time, right? One of the greatest
Certainly.
playwrights. But when you're a modern American student, and
Yeah.
you're forced to read that, it gets a
Yeah.
little
When all you're
dry.
wanting to do is drink beer and chase girls and play sports, Shakespeare just doesn't really do it.
That's
For
not, yeah,
me.
that's not the one getting the motor going, is it?
That's right.
Well, not for us anyway. Maybe for
Not for
other
us. Yeah.
other dudes and dudettes, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And God bless them for it.
Yeah,
God bless them for it. But those guys, when I started reading them on, so it can be enjoyable and understandable at the same time and take you to this really interesting story. Wouldn't that be cool if I was in that story or if that happened in my life? Or because I think that's why we read thrillers is it kind of gives us this escape and this view of a life that we'll probably never lead. You certainly more than others because you're a police officer for so long, but it gives us the ability to visit that life safely, visit that life
yes,
for certain periods of time in a very entertaining manner. And I think what's so brilliant about those authors is the protagonist is not going to die. You know it. But my
right.
God, they sure make you doubt it throughout the
They
book.
sure do, don't they?
And they're
Yeah.
fantastic at that. And I found that to be one of the most impressive things is how they can write this great peril and make you doubt, oh my God, is this the one where he dies? Then you go,
Yeah.
well, no, they're not going to cut off their money train. They would
Right.
never
Yeah,
do
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
I think that's very, very impressive. And I hope that I can at least be a semblance of that.
Yeah, and you know what for me, what I kind of like about thrillers is it's a really unique genre where it's, you get a lot of, oh, wait a second, I didn't see that coming. And then you also get a lot of emotions throughout the book too, right? You get fear, love, I mean, all kinds of things depending on the thing that you're writing. But like for
Right.
you, what do you love most about writing in this genre? Or what have you found that you like about it?
I do like the aha moments. Oh my, I love ending a chapter on uh, kind of a cliffhanger,
Hmm.
and then switching gears. I notice when I read the thrillers that I love, when they ended on a cliffhanger and they'll go back to another part of the story, I get so mad. I'm like, oh, I want to know what happens. But two or three pages into the other part of the story, now I'm completely engulfed in that. And then when that part ends and goes back, I'm like, well, I didn't want it to do that. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
really, I really enjoy doing that. I also really like humanizing the characters, because Ryan has faults. He has definite faults, and he struggles with them, and he works through them as best he can. Not only not only humanizing Ryan to show he's not just Superman walking through the door and
Right.
and perfect in every way, humanizing the bad guys too, because they weren't born evil. What happened to? I'm not giving them any excuses for their actions, but what happened along the way, and they're not just constantly killing. Some of them are family men, and some of them do have enduring qualities. But at the end of the day, they're animals, they're monsters. But I do like showing a little bit of that. Now they are humans too,
It
so that part I do enjoy.
And you know what? I love that too, because even if, going back to my former career as a police officer, is no matter what somebody always did or what I arrested them for, I always realized that they were human beings. Sometimes it's just a simple mistake. Maybe they had a bad day, maybe a few too many, tied one on.
Yes.
But, and at the end, we're all human beings and we all have things that, like you said, we weren't born that way, right? Hopefully we weren't
Right.
born evil, but
Hopefully not.
yeah, but something turns you that, and that was always my thing too, is like, what makes someone go down that path,
Right.
instead of just, thinking that, oh, they were born evil. I don't believe anybody's ever born evil. And I love the fact that you
Yeah.
go down that human path with your characters, because it's right. We need to show that there is humanity there behind, even though there might be terrible acts, there's humans
Right.
behind those.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And it's always, this is going to sound maybe strange, but I've thought for years, you take the most depraved human beings that's ever lived. The first name that comes to mind would be someone like Adolf Hitler, just
Hmm.
absolute pure evil, hate throughout his system. At some point, his parents looked at him and thought, what a wonderful, sweet little
Yeah,
guy. Where did it go wrong? Because it went wrong, and it
it
went
did.
drastically
Very
wrong.
wrong. Very wrong.
Again, absolutely no excuses for where it went. But where did it go and why? That's always really very interesting to me. And so I try to put a little bit of that into my bad guy characters, I
Yeah,
guess.
I love that, Brad. That's fantastic, because yeah, and Hitler is definitely a
Bad
bad
man.
guy. I mean, there's no
Bad,
ifs,
bad as they
ands, or
come.
buts about it. I mean,
Nope.
and you could sit there and say, oh, well, he did some good things for his people. I'm going to put that in
Yeah.
quote, but it's like,
Yeah, right,
you know what
right.
I mean? It's his people. But yeah, it definitely does not outweigh the bad. And he was
God,
definitely
no.
an evil human being. But yeah,
Yes.
I mean, the guy was what, an art student at some
Yes.
point in his life. And you're like, that's not the type of person you see that's going to kill millions of people,
Millions of, yeah.
you know?
And be the most hated man, and for damn good reason, the most hated man
Yes.
probably that's ever lived.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Now, switching gears, I wanted to ask you about this a little bit, because you said it's been about 2 years in the process, and obviously a lot of that's writing, editing, and publishing. But with the publishing process, I know, a lot of authors are always curious about the journey from writing a manuscript to seeing it in print. So what was your experience like when it came to publishing Recoil of Justice?
If I'm being totally frank, a little frustrating. I am self-publishing the book, which is becoming more and more popular every single day. All you have to do is Google self-publishing, and you'll have pages and pages and pages
It's
of
funny. That's a
of
question I have for you here too, Brad. So I was going to
of
ask you about, have you considered both? But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I did consider both. I think the decision was probably made for me. It's very difficult to get an agent, and from there, it's very difficult to get a publishing contract. And I didn't want to spend years trying to do that. Maybe get lucky and catch lightning in a bottle, but I didn't want to spend years doing that. And seeing how many people are very successful in self-publishing, I decided to go that route. I hired a company to help me with that. Because there's so much to get your arms around.
Well, yeah, I can't even imagine.
And that has not been the greatest experience of late. It's been better, but that was not the greatest experience of my life. Next time I'll do it all alone, because I've really educated myself throughout this process about how to, what all goes into it. And there's great freelancers out there too, where you don't have to completely commit to one company. You can, hire and piecemeal some freelancers that'll help you out a great deal, and they're very, very good at what they do. So that part was a little frustrating for me. The writing part was very fun. The design part is a tremendous amount of fun. When you get a cover back, you're going, oh my gosh, this is cool.
I can imagine.
It's kind of an ego boost,
Yeah, it got your name on it too.
Yeah, it's got my name on it and a picture in the back and this cool little bio. I sound professional, but
yeah.
That part is it strokes the ego a little bit, I guess you would say. But the behind the scenes part with publishing, about I would like an answer and I don't want to have to wait 2 weeks for a simple change to this.
Yeah.
That part got very frustrating to me. I'm not throwing stones to anyone, but I'll do it completely on my own next time.
Yeah, I could see that, because I'm the type of person that, if we're going to make a change, let's do it. Like, sooner than later. And I don't want to, especially like you said, if it's an easy change where you're like, I go back to coding, but I'm like, if I just got to change a line of code, why do I got to wait for 5 weeks for that when I know it only takes 20 minutes to do?
Or changing a font in a book when I can go Control A, change font, and it's changed. Everything's changed. So
exactly.
Why did that take 2 weeks?
That's so funny that you say that. But, I figure just like any business, they probably have other clients and things like
Absolutely.
that. But yeah, I could tell how that would get frustrating, especially on the easy things.
Yeah, and not that I was so necessarily upset with them for it, but it just told me that I can control this process a lot more. And I'm not a controlling person. I don't consider myself a controlling person, but I can control this process a lot more seamlessly, a lot more, and make it a lot quicker.
Yeah, more effective and efficient. Yeah,
that's right. If I do these things on my own, and the things that I'm unsure about, I know where to find the answers now.
Yeah. So do you think, excuse me, sorry, Brad, do you think that there will be a sequel to this book, or do you think you'll go another way?
Well, funny you should ask. Just before we got on, I just put down I'm reading through the next manuscript. I'm about 40,000 words into the next chapter in the series. It is a continuation of the Ryan Wolf series. It's probably, I'm not going to say halfway through yet. Maybe half the words are there, but they don't flow like I want them to right now. So I'm still working through that part of the process. I'm hoping by early 2026 that I'll be ready to publish that one too. But it's a continuation of the story, and hopefully surprise the readers with a nice little twist where Brian finds himself right back in the middle of it.
Yeah, and one of the nice things about that too, Brad, is when you do publish your second book, that's probably going to get more people to buy the first book. It's so funny. I've talked to a bunch of publishers, or people that have self-published, and they say the same thing. They say, everybody, you publish your first book, nobody wants to touch it. But then when you get a second, everybody's like, hey, you know what? I don't mind helping you out here, Brad.
Yeah, right. And that's actually a marketing plan for a lot of self-published authors. When any book they put out, they're constantly pushing toward that first book, because then you're probably going to buy, if you like, you'll buy the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth. And so, some even consider, after a few books out, give the first book away.
Yeah.
In ebook format, because it's
exactly cheaper.
You don't
much cheaper.
You can't spend $14, $15 and just give that away thousands of times over. You'd go broke pretty soon.
Exactly.
But, ebooks are obviously much cheaper to produce, so they'll make their first book free, and then maybe a discount on their second, and then it's just gaining customers, which is
But I think
almost.
It's great for the listeners that, obviously by the time this comes out, the book will have been out for several months, and, they'll listen to this, but it's nice to know that we can look forward to another chapter in the saga.
Yeah, I'm hoping people like it. I'm hoping people like the first book enough to buy the second, but I'm having a tremendous amount of fun writing the second one. I think I learned a lot
Yeah.
Writing the first, especially learn from my editor. I would go down some rabbit holes a little bit and give a little too much backstory. And I'd never written a book before, and the backstories were fun to write because they didn't have to be tied to any timelines or facts. You just
Yeah.
write something cool about someone, and he's like, okay, no one cares about that. Let's get rid of that. So I've learned a lot where I think I'm a lot more efficient writer now than I was on Recoil. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to write. I have noticed you lock yourself in on the first book on some fact patterns, though. I've noticed, like,
You
oh, I
do.
wish I wouldn't have done that, but I did. So I had, you just kind of have to deal with and exercise your creative muscles and work.
Yeah. And I would think that would be one of the hardest things to do is remember, okay, what did I write in the first book? I can't contradict that, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And, with ages and, I had to have a spreadsheet about how old everyone was and what year they did this. Cause man,
Yeah.
I found several mistakes in the first one. Wait, he was 34 20 years ago. Now he's 44. That makes no sense. So,
Yep.
you fix all those though.
Yeah, that's a perfect point though to talk out is just like how do you keep track of all those things? And I never even thought about, just open up a spreadsheet, throw your stuff in there so you could track it and find it really quickly. That's a great idea.
That's where my head went. I know a
Yeah.
lot of the software, writing softwares, you can build your characters and give,
Yeah.
those. To me, that was like a lot of busy work and a lot of organ, and it may have made it easier in the long run. But I'm like, I'm just going to open the spreadsheet. And do it.
Yeah. I love it. Simplicity is the key, right? That's how
right.
The simpler I can make it, the easier off, the better off we are.
Amen. Amen, brother.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, Brett, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I have a little fun segment that I like to do called Dude Q&A. Just quick, lighthearted questions about, from your background. No overthinking, just as fast as you can. But we'll get started here. So simple questions. This is going to be a tough one. You ready? Coffee or tea? Which is your go-to?
Iced tea.
Iced tea? Me too. I love iced tea.
About a half a gallon a day at least.
Sweet or unsweet?
Gets a lot of my money. Unsweet. But I put sweet and low in it.
I do the same thing. That's so funny. I do this. I love sweet tea, but I don't like it with sugar. Just
same
a sweetener.
Way. That's right.
Awesome. Book series or standalone novel?
Series.
I love that too when it just keeps continuing. I love it.
You know the character and you just grow along with them. I love it.
You just feel like part of the family almost.
That's right. They're your buddies.
Yeah. Your favorite book or author?
Favorite book is Lonesome Dove. Favorite author I enjoy reading, it's a tie. Brad Thor and Jack Carr.
Love it. And then for you, have you found a writing kryptonite? Anything that just takes you away from writing?
Golf. Anytime a golf tournament's on, I'm probably going to be watching that. ESPN Plus has ruined me. I can sign on at 9 in the morning and start watching feature groups. So that's probably Thursday through Sunday golf.
Gotcha. That's awesome. If you could have dinner with one historical figure, who would it be?
Thomas Jefferson.
That's a good one. I mean, that would be a long dinner, I think, if I was sitting down with Thomas Jefferson.
And probably a longer morning if I remember his habits in the evenings. But I would need a few dinners on that one.
Yeah, exactly. What's the most unusual thing you've ever researched for your book, if you have anything?
Probably street value of 300 times worth of cocaine.
You know what? Yeah, you would think you wouldn't have to look that up in your normal everyday life, but I guess for a book, you'd have to figure it out.
Maybe street value of a healthy liver. I mean, there was a lot of pretty sinister things I had to look at.
Hopefully the FBI is not checking your search history, right?
I've got a friend who's an FBI agent, and he called me to go to lunch the other day, and we're new friends. I'm like, has he been looking at my search history?
Exactly. For you, when you're writing and you're really getting into it, do you have like a go-to snack that you like to have with you?
I try to stick to almonds.
Pretty healthy. I love almonds. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I want to go in there to the chips every now and then, but I usually stick with almonds.
That's good brain food too, Yeah, almonds, the good fats in there. So, yeah. One word for you that would describe your writing style.
First word that comes to mind is organic.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting because you said you like to just flow, like let it flow. You don't have to plan everything out. And I love that because I think we get some of the most creative books and novels from people that just let it flow and just let it build from itself. So I love that.
Sometimes it takes you in a direction you didn't go before and there's things to fix because of that. But if you like it better, to me, that's the only way I can do it.
Yeah, and it's almost like you can iterate on it, and just
Yeah,
build and build and build. And that's, I
absolutely.
think those make the best characters, instead of just trying to define them up front.
Yeah, that's right. I
Yeah.
hope that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah. For you, are you a dog person or a cat person? And be careful because you may get hate.
Yeah, I'm really going to get hate from both sides. Historically, I'm neither. I
Okay.
had a hard rule of no pets in my house. And then about 3 years ago, my wife said, we're getting a dog. I
Our wives are good for
absolutely,
that, aren't they, Brad?
yeah, they are. There was no arguments back and forth. I'm like, okay, I guess we're getting a dog. And I tell you, and then we've since got another one.
That's how it happens.
You're going to have to put me in a pine box when something happens to that dog because I absolutely love him. I never knew the love of a dog, the pureness of their heart and their eyes when they're looking at you. Oh,
Yes.
just as sweet as can be.
Changed your whole outlook, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it does.
It
And
is
now I
so
look at other
funny.
dogs and I like other dogs now, but
Yeah.
I never did.
Now you're a dog person, right?
Now I'm a dog person. Yeah.
It's so funny because we have a dog too that is just he's a little nightmare. And when we first got him, I was like, no way, this dog is going to be terrible. And now that dog doesn't leave me anywhere.
Yeah.
And I love that
Yeah.
dog. I was like, still call him a nightmare, but he's my
Yeah.
nightmare now.
Yeah. Well, our second dog I wanted to punt her for a while, but she's grown up and she's really grown on me now too. So
Yeah.
she's the one with the personality, but they're both just great dogs.
Yep. If you weren't a writer and you weren't running your own company, what do you think you would be?
Well, I can't say professional athlete because I'm 5'10" and 180 and I run about a 540. I can't kick or punt and I can't hit a curveball. So I don't think there's anything really left. You know what I think I would love to do? I'd love to be a golf course designer.
That would be fun.
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I'm smart enough, but I think that would be just so much fun to build something, a clean slate, and build something. Obviously, with the terrain that you have to work with,
Yeah.
I just think that would be great to create and it's always going to be there forever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because a golf course designer, you don't think about it when you're out there playing you playing your 9 or 18 holes or however many you're playing. But yeah, someone took a lot of time to think that out and put a good challenge in there for
Yep,
you, to
that's
make
right.
those 3s, 4s, 5s, that you're going to be golfing. And yeah, I
And
like
I've
that.
cursed every single course designer of every golf course I've
You
ever
you and
played.
me both. So I don't call myself a golfer. I go out and hit a white ball. Well, I chase the white ball, usually in the
Uh-huh.
woods or the water.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I do love getting out on the golf course. There's just something about being out there on a nice sunny day,
absolutely.
especially if you're there with friends and you
The
can get,
camaraderie.
yeah, it's just great. Even if you do suck like I do.
Well, like to say that the whole joke is why they call it golf is because all the other four-letter words were already taken.
Exactly. That is the best one I've ever heard. I love that. That is awesome. Well, that was it. You made it through the dude Q&A, so hopefully that wasn't too bad.
I
Like I
loved it.
said, I just like to ask little questions, lets the listeners get to know you a little bit more on a personal level, and
Yeah, it was fun.
just see who you are. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, that was a blast, and I want to thank you for sharing your insights and your journey. But before
you
we
bet.
wrap up, because I know we're getting close to the end, and I don't want to take too much time. You got baseball coming up. Uh, Before we wrap up, where can our listeners find your book and get in contact with you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, bradeldernovels.com, or they can follow me on Facebook at Brad Elder Novels or Instagram, brad.elder.novel. Either one of those, they can get updates of when the pub date is. My website will obviously have a link to if they'd like to purchase the book. Or if they sign up now for the next week or so, well, I guess they won't hear it. But if let's just say this, if they sign up on my website, they'll get a free sneak peek at the prologue, see if they like my writing style, see if it interests them. And if it does, they can click the buy link and hopefully leave a good review. If they don't like it, they can leave a good review for another book they did like.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I love that. That's awesome, Brad, that you give them an opportunity to get a little reading, to read a little bit of your work before they buy it. And Brad, is there anything else that you want the listeners to know about you or the book before we wrap it up today?
I think we've gone pretty deep into it. I can't wait to hear the feedback. I will say I get nervous. There's certain websites we can post our book to that subscribers can see your book early and leave feedback. And every time I get an email that there's been a review, my heart just pounds.
Does
But
it like drop? You're like,
oh,
okay,
oh my
what's this
God,
going to be?
what do they have to say? But so far, it's all been really positive, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what your listeners think of it because like I say, it's dude book. I'm just a dude, but it's not so linear that it's just nothing but talking about boobs and beer.
Yeah,
It's a good it's
exactly.
has some depth to it. I like to think, and I'm really excited to hear what your listeners think about it.
Yeah, I'm excited for the launch. I'm going to pick up the book myself, Brad, because I love these types of books, and especially if they're going to make you think and go, "Oh, look at that!" I'm in. So, and just talking to you, it's definitely these are the types of books that and luckily I've been reading a ton of books lately because I've had a lot of authors and writers on the show.
Very
So thank
nice.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks again for
Yeah.
bringing that into my life, and at least you got one
Absolutely.
book sold there.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's been a good. It'll be worth it then. Right?
yeah, right. But no, Brad, I want to thank you again for sharing with us, sharing with the listeners, sharing about your book and bringing all this information to us, because I know the listeners that I have great feedback for our authors and our writers. And, they do like to go out there and read. It's nice, and things that, just a dude can go and read and kind of lose himself in, or herself,
Yeah.
a dudette, right. On that
Right.
side. That's,
Right.
I love sharing stories like this because you put all your heart and soul into this, even if it's like you said, it started as a hobby just to get something down. This is still you that you put into a book, and, your vulnerability you put out there, your
Yeah.
intelligence, everything is out there now for everybody to see. And, I just want to commend you on that, because I think that's
Thank
a
you.
feat that I have never been able to do, nor probably will ever be able to do. But I just have such admiration for folks like yourself that can sit down, take the time and build something like this. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate it very much. And hopefully, we'll be back on at another time.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back, Brad. So thank you so much. Thanks again, Brad, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. Be sure to check out Recoil of Justice, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Until our next episode, keep learning, keep inspiring, and keep being you. I'm Nathan with Just a Dude Podcast, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for listening.